Hope everybody's doing fabulous today. So as you can see, I have got a sketch here of Itto and Paimon from Genshin Impact. I previously did a video, an ASMR video on the sketching process, and at first I was going to be able to do the sketching with the coloring as ASMR. That was my initial plan, but there was just way too much noise in the background, and I just was like, forget it, I'll just do a voiceover. So I hope everybody's doing well and that you enjoy this voiceover. So the reason why I drew both Itto and Paimon together is because their birthday just passed. Both of their birthdays is on June the 1st, and of course on the day of uploading this will be June the 2nd, but I at least did finish the piece on time. It took me a while to really get all my references in place, but I will say the Game Fashion Archive was a humongous help for the outfits, especially for the vision at a different angle. It's kind of hard to do that. But you'll notice in the beginning of the video, I did show the time lapse because I had started to record and then I was drawing, and I thought on the OBS I had clicked start recording, but apparently I did not. So that was just a short bit of footage missing from the initial part, but that's why I ended up showing like I said, the time lapse in the beginning. Hope everybody is doing well and your Genshin adventures are going just as fabulous. Let's see here. Currently it is still the Baiju and Wonder on the banner. The new banner comes out on Tuesday, so we'll be seeing which characters those are, and if you're wishing for them, then I hope everything goes well for you. I did try to get Baiju's weapon on this banner, but that was not in the cards. So yes, so you'll see me starting with Itto's eyes. I really love his eye colors. I noticed whenever I was going back through the footage, I really spent a lot of time on his eyes, and also on the mouth. I'm not the biggest fan of like drawing the mouth at a different angle. I'm so used to honestly drawing more realistic that whenever I'm trying to simplify stuff, it's difficult at times. I really should do more like practice videos on making it like a simplified version. But you'll see right now, currently we're just laying down all the base colors. Even though Itto does look somewhat rendered, I just kind of got the gist of everything and laid everything down. I didn't know what to do with the background exactly, so that's why I chose a more golden background. I will say, and once I figure out more of how best to film these, it will all do much better, because it's kind of hard to film with I guess it's like a web camera, but for your images to not be so blown out. So if anybody has any recommendations for that, please let me know. I've been trying to mess with the gain and the white brightness, and trying to take off some of the autofocus, and it's all a learning curve. Each video is a learning curve for sure. But I do play around with colors quite a bit on this. I try to incorporate some gold in things from the background, and yet I still really like the idea of adding purple to a lot of stuff. But yes, let's see, we're still working on the vision. I will say it was kind of difficult at first because I was like, oh gosh, I can't remember how this vision is needing to go, and I was like, oh wait, Game Fashion Archive, I definitely could utilize that. So that's what I did. I ended up pulling that up and was utilizing it. So this pose is from whenever they had that, it was like a concert edition in Genshin, where Itto was putting on this festival, and he ends up rocking out at the festival at Inazuma. So that's why they both have these little mics. And that's where I got the biggest inspiration from, is from the banner for that. I said this is just too adorable not to draw. I will say though, I had some issues though with the hand placement. Once again, I need to do more hand studies. I can never do too many of those for sure. Let's see. I really like how I used bright colors in this. I will say that I've come a long way from the first time of posting a video and just even drawing these characters in general. They're all wonderful characters and really fun to play. Sadly, I don't have Itto. I think the last time that, I can't remember who was on the banner with him last, but I did not pull for him. I pulled for another character, or either I saved up for the next one. I think it's much easier to name the characters that I don't have at this point in time, and So I'll be so happy whenever we get the new areas to wander out. So you see how I pull the purple from the shirt and put it on the skin? I'm trying to get some hue variations. You have to try to pull everything together. With the hair, I still had a little bit issues with it. It was more so figuring out how exactly the shading needed to go. So I said I'm just going to lay down this base color and I'll come back to it later. And then Paimon. Oddly enough, Paimon I did have an issue with as well. This is my second time drawing Paimon, and actually the first time I drew her very realistic. And that image is over on my Instagram. I wish I was able to import it on the PC, but it's a big process to try to do one thing to the other, and I'm trying to get everything kind of halfway settled. But realistic Paimon is a little creepy, if I might say so. I never noticed it before whenever I was drawing her the very first time, how her eyes are very spooky. Like her iris is white, and then of course she has like, it looks like stars in her eyes. But if you draw that realistic, it is very creepy. Somebody looking at you with white pupils, and needless to say, Genshin, all of the characters have got some very unique pupils. Alright, so now we're working over on Paimon. I tried to split this up the best that I could, of attempting to do, put up 10 minutes of basic colors and 10 minutes of rendering Itto and then 10 of Paimon. But honestly, the way I draw, I go back and forth so much that after I put down the base colors, I go back and forth between Itto and Paimon, because especially with them overlapping like they are, it was a little bit easier to be able to put certain aspects of the coloring together. But overall, I will say that I do like how this piece turned out. It is definitely more in the style that I've been wanting to create and to bring out into the world. I know that with all this AI mess going on currently, it's kind of hard for the artists, especially on Instagram, unless you previously already had like a pretty large following, but it's a big thing at the moment. So I decided to try out this other app called Kara, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but I'm on there now currently, and we'll see how that does. Like I said, I'm on Instagram still, and I probably still will be. I doubt AI could learn much from me other than anime. But it's really sad that the world's coming to that, but we'll see how this turns out in the future. One can only hope for good. But my main focus currently anyways is just the drawing and just putting content out there that others can relate to and learn from, and I like to share what I know and what I have learned over the past. So for, like I said, for Paimon, her eyes aren't really like blue, but they're not really a light blue either, or a gray. I noticed in some, and I actually did reference some official art and looking at some fan arts to see how exactly everybody tends to render her eyes. She seems to have a dark blue and a purple hue, and then of course it probably has some violet light colors and the not really magenta, but it's like it kind of looks like it may have some pink in it, but it's very unusual. It is definitely the eye of the beholder of which colors to use for which. So here you'll see I go to her headpiece. In the game it looks more like a salmon pink color. So what I did, I kind of chose in the red area and just went over the background and selected part of the color for that in order to help kind of bring the colors together. I try to not make it so blendy, and I still wanted it to have some color variation. Now I will say, right about this part, I didn't realize it, but Itto's hair covered up the backside of it, so I had to go back and add that back in later, but you'll see it in a little bit later in the drawing as well. And I do apologize for the camera shaking. I didn't realize how aggressive some of my coloring motions were. Honestly, for ASMR, it would have been like perfect, but whenever I'm going back and looking at this, I'm like, oh my, may have to get out the motion sick pills for some of this. But yes, so Itto's hair is pretty straightforward. I will say though, I did have some issues on trying to understand which way the shading should go and needs to go, because honestly with the lighting, I really didn't do like a backlit lighting. I kind of just had that as part of the background, but I ended up turning the brightness down on my iPad to like, I would say it's like a 50%, so turn it down quite a bit. And so looking back, it was kind of difficult to determine the colors and the brightness of things because I'm so used to having my iPad like all the way lit up. But of course with filming, that's got to have some changes with that. But you'll see I do have some, it looks like a darker brown gray, but then I do add some blue in there. But honestly, whenever you put your finger over it and color or try to color select it, it says it's not really a blue. It actually is in more of a the warmer side of the color wheel. But color theory, who knew? Honestly, I don't understand color theory a whole bunch, but I try my darndest to do what I can. I would say this go around, as far as like following a reference, I kind of followed a reference, but then I still ended up I was like on autopilot on certain parts of it. Like I said, I was multitasking, which is generally what I end up doing a majority of the time. Usually whenever I'm drawing, I'm listening to another person draw, or either I've got like Honkai Star Rail or Genshin going in the background and doing some quests or doing some things here and there. Who's excited for, I think it's Natlin that's supposed to come up next? If I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I'm not. But I think it's going to be a really interesting concept. I can't wait to explore new things, and oh, the drama of the storyline. It's like this whole entire time. I think, what was it, after Sumeru, was it? We didn't really get too much more of a storyline or progression figuring out where the sibling is. But now the next one that's coming up, oh my word, it's gonna be interesting to say the least. So here we are, we're back working on the eyes. Like I say, I ended up rendering the eyes quite a bit and working on it a lot. His eyes are very, very pretty. And at first, whenever I was doing the initial color laying it down, I kind of forgot for a little bit about the multiply layer that I had on top with the initial drawing. So it made some of the color selections hard. So then, of course, whenever I do my next process of going over that after I've merged all my layers together, except for the background, then I'm like, oh, let me make sure to go back over this and do all this the way it needs to be done. And Itto has some very interesting eyebrows, I will say that. I think he's one of the few characters with eyebrows like what he has, but I work on that for a bit too and finally settle on something. Let's see here. So I really do color pick and color choose back and forth, trying to keep some consistency, but of course I end up kind of doing my own little variation here and there. I try to take this more painterly approach versus doing like just straight up cell shading and figuring things out like that, because that's something else that I don't understand 100%. And I do apologize too. I notice whenever I draw, of course I twist and turn my canvas around constantly, but I end up pushing my iPad even more unknowingly because I'm right-handed, and usually when I write or draw, I have my paper kind of turned at a different angle. So even though I'm turning the canvas on Procreate itself, I still end up trying to push my iPad to an angle. I need to get some of those non-slip grip mats and put it under my iPad because it did slide all over the place for a good bit. So I try to make the back part of his shirt that's supposed to be under the collar a little bit darker. My goal with drawing is to not solely rely on the blend modes that's in the app itself. I will later use the multiply and add layers, but I really like trying to be able to bring these colors out myself and to kind of paint it all together. So you'll see that I kind of pull some of the orange into the yellow so that it can blend a little bit more consistently. And I do that all throughout the drawing process. And then I will say his jacket kind of confused me a little bit on the layout, but overall, I will say it. I do like how the piece turned out. The choker, though, I could have rendered it a little bit differently. I didn't realize it until afterwards, and the more that I'm looking back at it, the angles at which the spikes on it kind of stick out. It's like one's facing one way, one's facing the other way. I don't know, maybe nobody noticed that and I just pointed out my own fault. So we go back and forth on the mouth quite a bit. Like I said, this is not my strong suit. I definitely need to practice. It's kind of hard to find practice material or practice videos of a certain drawing style. So maybe one day, once I like crack the algorithm of my drawing style, whatever it may be, semi-realistic anime or just like, I have no idea what exactly my style is, but I do like the anime style. But maybe that's what I could do for the future, is work on trying to be what, slightly advanced, I don't know, slightly more confident on my drawing skills and show to people, hey, this is how you do this and how you do that. But yes, I don't know where I went on that tangent, but the more I look at the piece, more it's coming together. I actually almost forgot about that other side of the hair because I have it off onto the side, and Paimon's little hairpiece kind of distracted me a bit, but I was trying to figure out where the lighting needed to go. And now that I look at it, what I probably could have done is some reflective lighting from Paimon's headpiece, since it does have like a pink hue to it, and it is a reflective item. I feel like it probably would have reflected more on Itto's hair a little bit. Probably threw in some pinks or a little peach color on the side. But yes, so I kind of did. I stuck to rendering Itto for quite a bit after laying down the base colors on Paimon. So this is where I took the add layer, and I do use a blending brush. It is from the JingSketch blending brush, if I'm not mistaken. Which a lot of the brushes I end up using is mainly from JingSketch. I just modified them a little bit. But I do like using the blending brush occasionally. It doesn't make it too smooth and still does give a light texture to it. But yes, you see me going back over some things because I ended up covering up things I didn't realize. But the blending brush, it can be a good tool if you don't overuse it, or I don't know, some people may have a better understanding of how best to use the blending brush, but for me currently, that's my go-to of certain things, because it's like I still want the brightness of an ad, but I didn't want it all concentrated. And I do know that whenever you blend it out a little bit, it helps to give that transition color. Say like, for example, on the skin, you have a bright color that you selected from the background that you wanted it to be a highlight. Whenever you put it on the skin, of course, it's going to look stark white. But if you take that blending brush and kind of smudge it into the drawing itself, you'll start to see kind of a transition phase of the color. And it does help. Let's see. So I kind of had another issue, I will say, with his other arm, the one that's holding the mic. Once again, hand studies, I definitely need to do that. But the way his clothing kind of bunches up, Itto himself does not necessarily have the most complex of outfits. If anything, he has an outfit with the lack thereof clothing articles of it. But just the way that it folds on the arm, it was a slight challenge to be able to bring all that out. I did, like I said, use the reference from the official art piece whenever they had that concert going on. And then I also went and found more turnaround angles of Itto himself. Even though I do use Game Fashion Archive, I still go and try to find more references of the character themselves. It does help. So now we're working back on Itto, working on his vision. So if you didn't know, Itto, of course, has got a geo vision. And I absolutely love him because he's got the little bull that comes out. His friend oh Lord, I'm blanking on the name right now, but whenever he does his ultimate moves, the bull comes out and it's doing its little dancey dance. But it's just so cute and adorable. So I do, looking back at this, almost looks like an egg yolk with the orange and the yellow. Oh my word. But I actually ended up putting the geo outline on a separate piece of layer. Sorry, my brain just blanked for a second. Put that on a separate layer, and then I worked under it, because at first I was like, how am I going to make sure that none of this is covered up? And that's when I was like, oh yeah, let me just put this on a separate layer. Sometimes I end up using one layer a lot and trying to really bring it home. Let's see here. Sorry, I just got a phone call and had to take a break for a second. So back to the drawing. Let's see here. So we're still working on the vision, which actually took me a little bit to figure out how best to do, because he's partly covered up, yet I still wanted a majority of the vision to be visible. I did not realize it until I went back on Game Fashion Archive, how the vision, it really has a lot of glittery spots on it, and so it's actually really pretty. All the visions themselves are very pretty. So I took a multiply layer and selected the lighter color and went all throughout on the piece. And then what you will see, I think, coming up is I add a layer on top of this, and then I add a add layer. And this is where I take some of the coloring, and then I end up doing the little dots all on it. So these layers, they can be a great tool to use when drawing, but they can also hinder you sometimes and cause the oversaturation issues. But honestly, I used to, it was a bad habit. I used to do a lot more muted colors, and I didn't realize how muted they were until I started focusing more on saturation and embracing color. And now it's just like, wow, the difference. It's always amazing to see the growth. So Paimon, I had issues with her. I think my biggest issue was mainly because she's a chibi-like character, and I'm not 100% the best at chibis. That is a whole learning and subspecialty of its own. But you'll notice also, I end up changing her mouth from the original sketch. I end up actually adding her having teeth on the top, because even though she's an anime character, it just, I don't know, I just can't get over the no teeth part. I do add that much later. Let's see, I'm trying to make sure to explain my process and somewhat of the mindset, because whenever I draw, I am just on autopilot, and I have this habit of pulling my canvas like way out and bringing it back in. I guess I do that to how can I say it, to have like an adjustment, and to see things from a different perspective. So actually, whenever I was editing, I'm like, good gracious, I end up doing that I don't know how many times. But it's just one of my habits of going out and back in and checking things back out. Is everything done right? I will say, with Paimon's hand, I do like the way I did hers better than Itto's. But it's just gonna have to be practice. It's the main thing. So you'll notice here too, on Paimon, the metals on her outfit, I actually did two different colors. On her legs, I did her leg, because her other leg is invisible, I did the more pink color of a metal, and then on her arms, I did the more gold. I try to have a little breakup between, because of the little piece on her chest. It does have a pink hue to it, and I didn't want it to all blend together. I wanted there to be some difference, and for it to be noticeable that, hey, these pieces, like, they're different. So you'll see that I use the color select a lot to try to get like a color in between of where I'm coloring at. This also does the more painterly approach as well. Once you get like your favorite color down, or whatever color you're going to use. And I almost forgot about this part on her outfit, but she has got these gray little outlines on the bottom of that scarf. because at first I was like, man, why does this look so bland and blank and empty? And I went back and looked at the art, and I was like, oh yeah, she has got this part on her piece as well. Like I said, this was only my second time ever drawing Paimon, and it was a learning curve. It really was. Oh. Who else has an issue too of where your canvas is going like too small by accident? Or I know that they have was it like the gloves that you can use to wear, and I actually do have one somewhere. But I tried to draw with it, but half the time I end up forgetting where it's at, and then I'm like, I really want to draw, but I don't want to hunt that piece of clothing down or the little glove to be able to use, and I'm like, forget it. I'll struggle. So right here, I actually do have the add layer. You'll see me taking that blend-in tool I was talking about, and you can see how it gives a gradient in itself. Now, needless to say, I could go through and select each individual color that's needed to create that gradient, but this kind of just saved somewhat a little bit of time. And like I said, I had no idea which way I wanted the lighting to go, and I was just trying to figure out where she would have highlights probably at. And the majority of it, honestly, is just like, I like this here. I'm going to put this here. But yes, I am looking into one day venturing out of drawing the Genshin and the Honkai Star Rail, which I need to, that may be one of the next ASMR videos, will be a sketch of one of the Honkai Star Rail characters. But to also bring in some of the other animes that I've watched, and some of them that's been recommended to me as well. That's how we all learn in life on things, but Genshin is my current obsession. Genshin and Honkai Star Rail. If anybody can relate, let me know in the comments, because it is very relatable. So I hope that this is helping me trying to explain my process through this. But yeah, you'll see that really render Paimon's eyes a lot more coming up. And focusing on that add layer, and that's where I end up adding the little dots too on her eyes with the add layer. Let's see here, what else to discuss? Never realized how much work really goes into making these videos. Many people and artists that I see, they post videos all the time, and of course they're like 20-something minutes long or 30 minutes long, and it takes a lot to be able to condense all this down into a smaller time frame. See, this is where I was mainly adding the teeth, and that's a whole another thing that I need to learn and study and do, because it's just anatomy. Anatomy is just weird in general. And it's all a learning curve, and like I said, once I learn more about my style and the direction that it's taking, and I will make sure to share it to everybody. Now, I will say at one point I almost forgot to add Paimon's lower lashes. She does like have a couple in all the official art, and I almost forgot to really go back over my sketch. So you'll see this is where I go back over it. Let's see here. We're getting close to the end of this video, and I hope everybody has enjoyed this little voiceover. Like I said, the next one I'll post will most likely be tomorrow. I'm going to try to do a ASMR sketch, hopefully. If the noise level will be low, which it should be, I'll probably try to sketch it after this. Now to figure out what character to sketch. Do I sketch one that I've already sketched before, or do somebody different? I'm kind of thinking about Pom Pom. If you play Honkai Star Rail, let me know who is your favorite character, and if you play Genshin Impact, who's your favorite character on Genshin? Well, we all have our favorites for sure. You can't deny that. But I hope everybody's enjoyed this video, like I said, and you're all doing well. And until next time, we'll be on the Genshin and Honkai Star Rail adventures together. Alright, I'm going to leave this here, and I'm going to go over the time-lapse real quick. I haven't found a way to import it yet, but once I do, I'll soon do those at the end of the videos as well. And until next time, bye-bye!